One of the things that I found really interesting out of this study was obviously when we think about artificial intelligence, the idea and the hope is that it will make our lives easier. That's a lot of the reasons in which it's being developed so that it can take away some of the strain and stress that we have in our everyday lives and even at a high level. But the things that they found in this when they did this report is that a lot of people believe that it could have an overwhelmingly negative impact on the everyday human experience. And so, okay, here we go. We're going to try it one more time because I want y'all to hear it from the person who actually did the study, and that's Lee Rainie.
We asked about 12 different kinds of human traits and characteristics and attributes that are essential qualities of being human. Things like curiosity, like creativity, emotional intelligence, social intelligence, empathy, critical thinking, things like that. And it was striking to see in this survey that across the board, across all 12 traits that we queried, we found that Americans think the impact of AI in the next 10 years will be more negative than positive. They don't think that any basic human trait is going to be improved by the onslaught of generative AI, which is, by the way, connected to the first thought of your interview, it's the fastest spreading technology we've ever seen.
So interesting that you say that because how do you reconcile finding that people feel overall negative about the impact that AI can have on human abilities, but it also being the fastest growing entity that we're seeing permeating through pretty much every aspect of life? How do you reconcile those two things?
It's a brilliant question. I think a couple of things are going on. First, when humans are using it, they can sort of see in real time what it does or doesn't do for them. And in many cases, what we have found in other research we've done is that people like it. They are sort of bowled over by sometimes the quality of the answers they get when they type something into ChatGPT. The stunt of it itself, just the fact that a computer can interact this way, is kind of enchanting to people. And they're watching the world around them, particularly in the world of work, and seeing that this is now being embraced by businesses. And so, in some sense, it's a thing that they have to embrace whether they like it or not. What we asked them to do in the survey is an act of imagination, not an act of sort of sitting at a computer. It's thinking through how this plays out in your life and other people's lives in the next 10 years. And in many cases, I think what people would say if we actually asked this question is, I think I'm going to do okay with it. I can see how it works. I can see what its value is. I can see what its limits are. I'll be fine. Everybody else around me, though, isn't as capable as I am and might not be as discerning as I am. And so there's a sense that the society might suffer, even if individuals themselves might not.
It's fascinating thinking of it in context of the impact of others, but not putting yourself into that pool of impact. Just looking at some of the key things that you all said that you found, I'm interested to know, particularly because the connection with Elon University. So I hear from or read a lot of professors now are really kind of battling with students using AI in both appropriate but a lot of inappropriate ways with their studies. And I imagine that's a part of this conversation as well. One of the things you had in your survey was the capacity and willingness to think deeply, particularly about complex subjects. Can you speak a little bit more about what you mean by that in the question that you were asking people and then the responses that they provided?
That was our little bit longer wording for the grand concept of critical thinking. So one of the things that's been said for a long time as artificial intelligence and automation was coming into workplaces, the emphasis, particularly in higher education institutions, on teaching students to be able to think critically was going to be a differentiator for us and the machines. The machines just do patterns and they do math, but they don't necessarily think through things. And so the presumption has been for a long time, this is a special human attribute that can't be replicated by computers. Turns out that there are ways in which ChatGPT and its cousins look a lot like this. And so it was time to put these kinds of questions on the table. And you are exactly right. There's this an enormous global conversation in higher education about how do we cope with this. And cheating is the starting point for a lot of those conversations. Tons of professors can cite episodes where students have put a term paper assignment into a language model, copy and pasted the answer, and handed in their work. There are some software tools that can assess whether an output is created by AI or not, but they're getting worse and worse because the AI is getting better and better. And so this is a top of mind conversation for all sorts of professors. The other thing that they have to be thinking how do I revise my curriculum? How do I do my testing so that I'm actually measuring student mastery of a subject rather than the cut and paste phenomenon that they see? The other thing that is really distressing in the academy is the degree to which, as this stuff rolls through their classrooms, they have to rethink what they teach and how they teach it and how they test for it. So there's a lot of talk, for instance, about returning to blue book exams, where you don't do a capstone project at a school. You actually sit in a classroom with a pencil or a pen, no computers in evidence, and write out your answers, and then maybe even go through an interview with the professor to see whether you've really mastered a subject or not. So this return to in-person encounters and in-person assessments about whether students are doing the work or not is just rampant now on campuses.
Yeah, I've had a few conversations with people, and that's exactly what they say. You know what? We're just going to have to go back to where it's pencil and paper, because how else are you able right now to really determine if somebody knows the material? One of my last questions to you, until I ask you, I think a really important one about what do we do from here, is your study even got into confidence that people have in themselves and their self identity. Now, there's a reason why you ask those questions. Again, I'll ask you what the findings were there, but why you all felt that it was important to ask about how AI could impact someone's confidence and even their self-identity. What were you hoping to determine in that, and what did you find?
Those are two things actually that distinguish humans from other kinds of animals and other kinds of species. And so they are unique human traits that are being challenged now by new intelligences. So that's kind of why we asked it in the first instance. The other thing is that both of those subjects are essential for social uses of technology. If the technology is destroying trust, societies get worse. If the societies are challenging people's sense of who I am and do I have value in the world, that makes people worse and feel less good about themselves. So in a way, the sort of special social nature of humans is on the table with both the trust question and the identity question. That's kind of why we asked him. When we did find, like on all the other 10 subjects we asked about, the feeling was among Americans that the impact of AI will be more negative than positive in the next decade.
So, Lee, what do we do? I mean, if we're seeing this and we know AI is not going away, we know that it is rapidly becoming more and more part of our fabric. How do we, I guess going back to the beginning, how do we reconcile knowing that, but putting things in place to where these concerns and these negative potential impacts that we don't experience them?
So a lot of people make the argument that guardrails and sort of testing mechanisms to make sure the AI is performing well and performing in a pro-social way. It's not hurting us. It's not taking us out of the decision-making process altogether. So there's a lot of urgent conversations to have around what kind of guardrails you put around these products in the first place. A lot of academics are arguing that even as much as they are challenged by it and are not necessarily affectionate towards it, using it, becoming aware of it, figuring out its capabilities is a pathway to figuring out how it could or could not work for you. So a lot of them are just saying to students, even the skeptical students, you got to give it a try to test out what it looks like for you and to figure out where your right relationship is with it. The other thing that is sort of urgently called for in the society at large is how are we going to think about incorporating these things into our lives so that They enhance relationships. They enhance community. They enhance our productivity as workers. They help us figure stuff out just more generally and help us become better friends and communities and stuff. There are ways to be thinking about that, but lots of people have to weigh in on those things because it's not going to be just left up to these masters of these technology companies to set the protocols and the weights in a way that everybody's going to be happy with.
All right, that was a lot to kind of bring in, but ultimately he's saying, hey, there are some concerns when it comes to artificial intelligence and its impact on us doing everyday things because we are going to depend on it so much. Naya, I know we were just sitting there chatting a little bit while the interview was running, and first I got to ask you, do you use AI? I mean, in any kind of way? Does it kind of, do you find yourself using it? I don't know if you're on ChatGPT. I don't know.
No, I actually don't use
Really?
ChatGPT. I hear about it a lot, very often. I do have also a friend who uses it a lot in her profession, but I have not gotten on ChatGPT yet.
So not like for, recipes or workout routines or how to schedule your day-to-day schedule? You don't do none of that?
No,
Really?
For my recipes and all that stuff, I use the standard Instagram,
Okay.
TikTok.
Standard.
That's where you go to find your recipes.
You scroll, you see a dish you like, and then you just click on it, and that's how you do it. That's what's up. But you were talking about your friend, and I know I'm sitting here acting like I use AI a lot. I really don't. I mean, I have used it, I think, maybe a handful of times I can think of for maybe a workout routine or even to help me map out my trip to Europe last year just to get some ideas. That was really helpful. I've used it for some organization on my calendar, but some of the high level ways in which Lee Rainie was talking about there, no, not to this point. One thing I thought was interesting too, Nai, he was talking about in academics and education. And I know both of us have siblings who are in college right now. And for them, everything is the phone, using AI, like that's going to be second nature to all of them. What are your thoughts on like these students these days kind of using AI for their homework assignments?
I don't know. I really feel like it's cheating, but I mean,
Yeah,
students were cheating before AI, so
that
I
is
feel
true.
like
It's an age-old
it is going
tale.
to be a harder way to catch it if we're using AI. But like he was saying in the interview, that there's software that they're trying to keep up with ChatGPT and the new software and how they're catching cheating and how teachers are using that.
I feel like you almost need to, if technology is what is leading, I mean, that's obviously not what's leading. It's the students' desire to cheat is what's leading, right? But if they're using tech like AI to cheat, I think just have them write everything down now. If you're going, because that way, at least if you're really going to use AI to cheat, at least you have to write it out. You got to put it in a notebook. You have to, bring back typewriters.
That's true.
That's what I'm thinking. The way that you combat maybe AI and the advancement of technology is you go back a few stages back, right? Like nobody wants to write out an entire essay on a typewriter. As someone who has had to do it in his lifetime, I'm telling you, you don't want it. But if they see it as an issue, I think that that's something that maybe they should do. Do you see any other issues, or like maybe do you see the use of AI being way more positive than what this survey kind of showed?
I don't know. I don't know if I feel like it's positive or negative because in some ways it can help as far as like speed in certain professions and how it can get things done a little quicker. But I think it has a lot of flaws.
I think so too. I think for me, I'm really appreciative of the technology and where it's going, but I'm also concerned because the guardrails are not in place and in speed with how fast AI is growing, and that the how much people are depending on it so quickly is growing. I feel like you really need some more guardrails on it at this stage that we don't have. Okay, one more thing I wanted to ask you about AI. He said one other thing that I thought was really interesting. He said that it might, and I think this was maybe after our interview, so this is why I asked. He said it might give in to what he called a wellness economy. It might help push a wellness economy. because people might depend so much on AI and tech, it's the simple things like creating a job that you go out and take someone out for a walk. Like people pay you to walk with them or to have some form of human interaction to help you, not completely forget that humans exist. He said it might actually lead to more of this, that type of job. So it leads me to ask, would you pay somebody to take a walk with you?
I would not. I've also been seeing a lot of the ads that have like the people talking to the chat bots, asking them how should they work out, what's the next workout. I feel like that's helpful, but we're just straying away from human interaction. That's a bit scary for me.
I'm going to choose people every time. I don't know. Maybe AI can't break my heart like people can, but I'm still going to choose people. I just got to do it. Oh, my goodness. All right. Well, hopefully you gained something for those who watched from that interview as we look over the next 10 years. We're going to learn a lot about AI and about ourselves. But